Greetings everyone, this is Sonic Blue and this is Bowsie the Bearded Dragon, who is so happy to see everybody, and it's time once again for Bowsie's Vlogs. And today is a very important message, because today I'm going to be talking about what to do during a power outage if you have a bearded dragon or a reptile of any sort. This will work for any reptile that relies on heat in order to thrive, such as bearded dragons. Now when the power goes out, it's understandable. There's nothing happening. You don't know how long you're going to be out for, and it's always best to be prepared in case something like this happens. The best way to prepare yourself for this is stock up on hot water bottles. You don't want to use anything battery powered. You don't want to use heaters. You don't want to use anything like that. Just go back to nature and use plenty of hot water. The hotter, the better. But because water, from your tap, it doesn't really exceed past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and if it does, then you got some pretty dang hot water. But if you have hot water bottles, here's what you do. You fill up the water bottle with as hot of water as you can get out of your tap, and then you place it in where your bearded dragon is, or nearby where your bearded dragon is, and that should help generate some of the heat that that will thrive upon in order to prevent getting too cold, basically. There are a few other tips that you can do for your bearded dragon or for your reptile. A lot of people will suggest putting a battery operated heating pad or something in there, and you don't really want to do that. Anything that can exceed past 100 degrees Fahrenheit can and will singe the bottom of their scales, and you don't want to put anything in there that's going to make them burn, because reptiles don't really move off of things that are too hot. With a tame bearded dragon, even though they feel the need to regulate their body temperatures by moving from the hot side to the cold side of the terrarium and vice versa, they could still run the risk of burning their scales. You really don't want to have anything in there that's electronic that produces heat. Such of the ways are heat rocks. That's a definite no-no. Whether or not there's a power outage, heat rocks are a definite no-no. Heating pads are definitely the best thing to get for heating your bearded dragon. So I guess this blog can go for how to keep the heat in your terrarium, especially during power outages, which we'll get to in a moment, which I've already touched on briefly before we started. While you have power, and you're probably wondering what is the best method to heat up your terrarium. Now, the hot side of the terrarium should always be no hotter than 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Any Reptiglow or Reptisun bulbs, especially if you have a desert creature like a bearded dragon here, any desert bulb about 100 watts would do the trick. It will produce about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which is what the terrarium is at now, and it will help generate that for the most portion of the day and the afternoon. And then when the evening comes, they'll gravitate toward the colder side of the terrarium. Sometimes they'll actually sleep on their basking sticks. Bowsie does that sometimes, huh? But it all depends on what your bearded dragon is feeling and how warm or how hot they want to be. The cold side of the terrarium should not exceed 85 degrees Fahrenheit, should not go above 85. 80 is a good round number for the cold side of your terrarium. If it's 80, perfectly fine. And to get that 80 degrees, it's best to get a heating pad when you plug into the wall and you stick it under the terrarium. Get one that's about the size fitted for the size of terrarium you got. If you got a small terrarium, then you get a small heating pad. If you got a large terrarium, get the bigger heating pad. It's very plain and simple. And then when you get the heating pad, place it underneath the terrarium, and they have an adhesive side where it sticks. And then you plug it in, and it keeps the cold side at about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is just where it needs to be. That is also a perfect place to put like maybe a hollow half log. So you put the hollow half log over where the heat comes up in the heating pad, and what happens is all that heat is going to generate, and it's going to give them an oven effect. Not too hot, of course, but it's an oven. It's the kiln oven effect, basically what it is. The heat comes up, and then the shape of the kiln helps to contain the heat in sort of like an arch. So that's basically the same effect, but it's perfect for allowing your bearded dragon a nice heated environment where they're surrounded by heat. It's not just underneath their scales, but over the top of their scales as well. So, you get all that arched heat, and they're surrounded by this heat. And that's the best method to keep your bearded dragon warm in the colder side of the terrarium, especially after they've eaten. They will need a place to go to digest all of that food. They have to have adequate heat so that they can digest their food. Otherwise, the food's just going to sit in their stomachs. It's going to rot. It could produce parasites. They could get very ill, and the next thing you know, you got a sick bearded dragon. So always remember to keep adequate heat inside the terrarium. 100 degrees Fahrenheit is a nice round number for the hot side, 80 degrees for the cool side. And now going back to the power outage. What happens if one of the two following happen? Vicious storm comes along, knocks out your power. You don't know how long it's going to be before it comes back on. Well, otherwise, you know your area very well. You know how long this can and will possibly happen. So kind of grade the average time for the power outage to take effect before the power comes back on. That is how long you need to keep in mind how long you're going to be out of power. If you're going to be out of power like 2 or 3 minutes, not a problem. There should be enough heat to regulate for that 2 or 3 minutes you're going to be out. But let's say something happens where a car comes and skids and collides with a power generator, knocking out that area's power. You don't know how long the city's going to take to come and fix it. So stuff like that happens all the time. Maybe a squirrel gets up there and chews on the wires and busts it and breaks it, and the power goes out that way. Plus, you'll have one very baked, crispy critter squirrel. I've seen that happen before, and it's not pretty. It's not a pretty sight. It's not a pretty smell. But it does happen. But what should happen during a power outage? Well, during a storm, you can pretty much gauge how long it's going to take. So use that knowledge to note how long it's going to take before the power comes back on. That will let you know how often you need to change their hot water bottles. And what you want to do is you want to get just one hot water bottle will do it. And if you can't find them, look at your local druggist, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart might have them. Or you can order them online if nobody has them in their store. Whatever it takes, at least have one hot water bottle on hand in case this ever happens. And then if it does happen, and you know you're out of power for longer than 5 minutes, then here's what you do. You go over to the sink and get the hottest water you could possibly get inside that hot water bottle, close it up real good, and then slide it into the terrarium right next to where the bearded dragon is. And what will happen is that heat will enact like the heating pad underneath the terrarium. It will generate the heat from the steam of the hot water and will permeate through their terrarium. They'll be nearby the heat source, so that way it's not going to be too hot for them. It's going to be nice and soothing. It's not going to be anything like harsh, like a heat rock or direct heat from, like, say, a heater or anything like that. You really don't want to put anything battery operated in or near your terrarium. Just go back to nature and use hot water. That's the best method to keep your bearded dragons warm, especially during a power outage. If you happen to be involved with a power outage that you don't know what the source is, like somebody comes in and, skids along the road and runs into a power generator, power could be out all night long. So what you pretty much need to do is kind of babysit your bearded dragon and keep changing out their hot water bottles. Make sure you have constant hot water going through there. I know it's kind of sad a situation to have to do, but your bearded dragon is very worth it. I've had moments where I had to babysit Bowsie, even in the middle of the night. I had to wait pretty much to make sure that she's getting the adequate heat that she needs. Anecdote time. Now, something happened one time. The first time I brought Bowsie back here to PA, I woke up one morning, and this happens very often, too. When you wake up in the morning, you find out that their day bulb didn't turn on. And it's usually because those day bulbs will tend to go out a lot more frequent than any other bulbs you put on their terrarium. The day bulbs don't have very long of a life, maybe 2,000 hours at most, and so you need to constantly keep your eye on that. It's best to always, first of all, if you own a bearded dragon, always try to wake up when they do. You never know when they're going to want to wake up and eat, wake up and, make sure that their lights are working and everything. So always try to gauge your sleep schedule with your bearded dragons. That ensures that they get fed in time. Anything happens with their lights, you can easily fix it right away before it gets too cold in there. Whatever the case may be, but you'll be there, you'll be able to watch your bearded dragon a lot more closer. So if it ever happens that you wake up in the morning, light goes out, and you freak, don't try to freak out too much, because they do still have that heating pad underneath the cold part of their terrarium, and chances are they can refer to that if they get too cold. But let's just say the bearded dragon doesn't really know when it's too cold, and they still remain in that cold environment. Will my bearded dragon be okay? Chances are yes. If the light had just gone out, chances are they will be okay. As long as they're not exposed too prolonged to the cold of the lack of their day bulb. Hi, little Miss Gapers over here. Yeah, you feel accomplished, don't you? Hi, look at this happy girl. Look at this happy face. Yeah, she wants to say hi to everybody. Say hi. Say hi. Hi, Bowsie. Say hi to everyone. Hi, baby. But anyway, I woke up one morning, and since we didn't have replacement bulbs on hand, and I didn't expect that bulb to go out so soon, number one rule of thumb, always keep spare bulbs. You never know when it's going to go out, and you never know when you're going to need to run to the pet store for more. Always keep at least one spare bulb in backup. Okay, that's first and foremost. Number two, if you happen to not have spare bulbs, like I had just moved in, and I wasn't planning on going to the pet store right away. I was planning on going a few days later and getting all the things that she needs as backup. Backup food, bulbs, the whole 9 yards. But the morning that after I moved her in, it was about a couple of days after, the light went out, and I sprung from my bed and I ran over there, and what ended up happening was I had to use her night bulb during the day. So even though it's a different color, it's the red bulb, you could still use it and still help generate that heat they need until you can get to the pet store to get an actual day bulb. The only difference between the night bulb and the day bulb produces more heat. The night bulb doesn't produce as much heat, but it does produce heat. Okay, you wanna explore? Come on up, Bowsie. Yeah, she's in exploration mode. She's very alert today. And she's played Daredevil on me twice. Yeah, they will tend to get into Daredevil mode, and you have to be able to know when they're going to do that, and just be on your toes with your bearded dragon, no matter if it's during a power outage or if it's during any of their daily affairs. Like when you're holding them, you have to keep both eyes on your bearded dragon at all times. Make sure that they don't fall too much. If they do happen to fall, and accidents do happen. Nobody's going to criticize you if you accidentally allow your bearded dragon to leap out of your hands onto the floor. They can and will do that, and they will scare the living crap out of you. Make sure that you take care of their calcium needs, build up their bones and the strength in their bones, give them a well-balanced meal, vegetables and meats. Make sure that they're very well fed, very well taken care of, and very healthy throughout their upbringing, and that way you will have a very healthy adult bearded dragon on your hands by the time they reach adulthood. And Bowsie's 4 years old, but she certainly doesn't show 4 years of age. She shows as if she's still a year old, and it's because of all of the nutrients that she takes in and all the vitamins that she needs, and of course the calcium that I use on her superworms. And she is about as healthy as she can be, and I am so proud of Bowsie for being such. Yes, I am. Yeah, and it really matters. Everything you do for your bearded dragon really matters in the way that they are in their adulthood. And it's also the bond that you share with your bearded dragon that make that one so unique to you. If you have that bond, you'll know. But aside from all of that, if you follow the simple rules and make sure that they have plenty of heat in their terrariums or vivariums, if you happen to be having a vivarium, whatever the case may be, as long as you have adequate heat, keep the hot side at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but no higher than 110. Keep the cool side of their terrarium at 80 degrees, no higher than 85. Then you will have a very, very happy, healthy bearded dragon, even through unexpected occurrences like power outages. So that's the best method to enable your bearded dragon to maintain heat during a power outage. Remember the water bottles. Do not forget to keep an extra couple of them on hand in case one of them were to rupture. They might claw at it or scratch at it and might spring a leak. You never know. So always remember, keep a couple of them extra on hand just in case. You never can be too sure. And when the power goes out and you know you're going to be out of power for a while, refer to one of those hot water bottles and just slide it in where your bearded dragon is. They will be happy, they will be healthy, and their scales will not singe, will not burn, and they will regulate their heat that they need to thrive. So, there's your answer. I was actually asked this by a lot of people too, like, what about blankets? What about pillows? What about other things that could store the heat? I don't really recommend blankets or pillows or anything foreign to be placed in with your bearded dragon other than a water bottle. If you want to use a blanket, you can. Probably best to include the water bottle, to slip it underneath the blanket and then put the blanket over them, and that way the heat will spread and keep contained with your bearded dragon. That way you don't have to put them directly over the hot water bottle. You can put it next to them and then cover them with a blanket. That will help, but don't put a blanket in there just by itself. Because you got to understand, bearded dragons are cold-blooded creatures, and whatever heat they have is basically provided by other heat sources such as heat bulbs, hot water bottles, heating pads, etc. When the power goes out and there is no more heat coming out of that terrarium, then you have to provide that heat with something that generates the heat you need. Hot water bottles are the best thing. But putting a blanket over them, you got to understand, they have to be able to keep regulating on their own their body heat, and they can't do that because they're cold-blooded creatures. So putting a blanket over them is not going to help unless they have an additional heat source to help regulate their heat and to keep maintaining their heat level. So putting a blanket in just straight over the bearded dragon, eventually they're going to get cold, and being wrapped up in that blanket is going to make it worse. You never know, that blanket could also tangle up inside of them. They might suffocate. You always have to make sure if you put anything foreign in their terrariums, be it a blanket, even a hot water bottle, keep a steady watch. Make sure that they are using whatever it is you put in there correctly. Make sure they don't get entangled in something like a blanket. Make sure that they are generating the heat they need at all times. And especially during a power outage, when you don't know, or you can't really rely on their heat bulbs or their heating pads or any other heat source that you provide for them, always keep a steady watch on them, especially during power outages. And so that's one of the things that I was asked in recent times was, what about blankets? And a lot of people will think, well, if I throw a blanket over them, they should keep warm. That would work if it was a warm-blooded animal. Reptiles are cold-blooded, so they can't generate on their own, from their own bloodstream, the heat they need in order to keep their body temperature at a suitable level. You have to provide that heat for them. A blanket is not going to do it. Sooner or later, and pretty much sooner than expected, that heat is going to run right out, and that blanket is only going to insulate just a small portion to keep getting the heat going. What you need to do, if you're going to use the blanket, throw a hot water bottle in next to them. That way, with the heat of the hot water bottle, should generate enough heat to where the blanket will keep it contained, and then the heat that would normally just leach out of the hot water bottle can actually be blanketed over your bearded dragon. So that is the only time I will recommend a blanket to be used to help generate the heat for your bearded dragon. If you are looking for any further tips on how to raise your bearded dragon and what to do in certain situations, you've come to the right place. I will help you along. And I've been very experienced with bearded dragons, and it definitely shows, because Bowsie could never be happier. And if you have any suspicion that your bearded dragon is feeling ill, lethargic, or just non-responsive, or even not even alert, very tired, and showing signs of illness, always remember the number to your veterinarian, one who specializes in exotic pets. And make sure you have that number on hand. You will have a very happy and healthy bearded dragon for years and years to come. And Bowsie couldn't be happier. If you're interested in getting a bearded dragon, refer to my videos. It will prepare you for what you need to do in order to keep a happy, healthy bearded dragon. If you already own a bearded dragon, you can always pick up extra tips. It's a win-win situation. So if you like this video and you think that this can help you with the care of your bearded dragon, subscribe to it. If you have any other further questions that haven't been covered in my videos, please leave a comment down below. I will touch on it, and it will be the subject of a future episode of Bowsie's Vlogs. So, for all of you bearded dragon owners out there, to us here in the studio, we wish you lots of luck and the care of your bearded dragon, because they are worth it. Well, she's gaped enough, I guess, today. So anyway, you can come back up here. I think that was her goal all along. She wants to come up and cuddle with Daddy. Is that what you wanted all along? You wanted to cuddle? Is that what you wanted? Yeah, I think it is. Want a nuzzle? No? She doesn't want nuzzles right now. Or maybe she does. You want a nuzzle? Here's my chin. No. I think it's because of the beard. She likes me when I'm smoother. Which... Oh, now she's gaping. Now she's gaping. Now she's gaping and she's not even on camera. What are you doing to me, baby? You're turning me into a weirdo. You are. Yes, you are. You're so silly, but I love you anyway. Come here, baby. And I got a nice cuddly girl who wants cuddles and not nuzzles this time, but I think she's waiting for me to shave before I give her any more nuzzles. Otherwise, she likes it right up here on the cheek or right down here where there's very little hair on the chin. But yeah, I think the harshness of the beard kind of, makes it a little bit irritating. I think that's what it is, huh? See, I had to learn this about bearded dragons. See, there's not everything... I mean, I don't know everything about bearded dragons. There are some things that I do have to teach myself, especially interacting with Bowsie and what they like and what they don't like. And they don't like bristles. They love softer things. They don't like harsh bristles. And so anytime that she's near me and she thinks that she's getting a good nuzzle in, she'll like jerk her head back when she gets a good head full of my bristles. And she doesn't like that. So... bearded dragons love soft things. Keep that in mind. They don't like beards. If you have a very cuddly and very nuzzly bearded dragon like Bowsie is, stay clean shaven. In fact, that's a reminder I should go shave right now, but anyhow, I digress. Once again, take care everyone. Lots of luck with your bearded dragons, and talk to me if you have any problems. Chances are I've been there, or I can help you through it. But lots of luck and the care of your bearded dragons nonetheless. This is Sonic Blue for Bowsie's Vlogs. Take care, everyone. May your bearded dragon be as happy and healthy for years to come to bring you the best happiness.